I like the YouTube show Feminist Frequency, but I highly disagree with its first video about how Dollhouse is misogynistic. I'll take a moment to address its claims. Video blogger Anita Sarkeesian, sorry if I mangled that, brings up the point that since the Dollhouse creates these imprints that are designed to fall in love with a person and have sex with them, that it isn't exactly consent, and would be rape in a matter of speaking.
Dollhouse is really misogynistic. I don't know what other word to describe it as. There's a big issue that hasn't really been raised about whether this is rape or not. It's been talked about online a little bit, but the show hasn't dealt with this issue.
This issue is actually explored in Season 2, but because this is about Season 1, I'll keep it in the realm of Season 1. I would say that Dollhouse would have explored it in detail if they had time. The Fox executives just didn't give them a lot of time to talk about all they wanted to talk about. And if they weren't under such a time crunch, I think that they would have covered that subject. It's kind of amazing they got in as much as they did. It is a fault of the show that it's not explored in such detail, but I think some allowances can be made considering that they just didn't have much time to get stuff done. She also says that the Dollhouse may be antagonistic, but we are encouraged to like it because the cast of characters includes the management of the Dollhouse.
In Dollhouse, we're, as the viewer, supposed to condemn the Dollhouse. We're not supposed to like it. We're supposed to think it's morally and ethically wrong to do these things to these people. Yet, we identify with all of the characters in the Dollhouse. So, Boyd, the handler, you think he's pretty cool because he seems to have issues with what's going on, yet he still continues to work there. The woman who runs the place, towards the end of the season, we start to get more of an emotional grasp on her, and her character becomes a little more complicated. So we become even more entrenched in who she is and not hating her. Topher, the crazy scientist, you totally think he's funny and witty and smart and goofy, and you don't really take him too seriously. If we're not supposed to like Dollhouse, which I think we're not supposed to, then why are we sympathetic with all of the characters inside of the Dollhouse?
I don't think that being sympathetic to some Dollhouse employees makes us sympathetic to the organization, though. Okay, I'm going to talk about Boyd now, and because there's a big twist in Season 2 regarding him, I'm going to talk about him in regards to how we viewed him in Season 1. I'm just going to pretend that that plot point is off the table. I'm not sure Joss actually planned him to do what he eventually ended up doing, so yeah. In Season 1, Boyd is probably the most sympathetic character in the Dollhouse, and that's because he consistently asks questions and he tries to subvert the authority, tries to get people thinking, is this really the right thing to do? So he's in it, he's doing evil with the Dollhouse, but he's also kind of trying to make Dollhouse employees question themselves. You could say he's trying to limit the harm that the Dollhouse actually does. And consider what options he has. He could just quit, and he'd be placed under a gag order. He wouldn't be able to talk about the Dollhouse. And if he actually did talk about the Dollhouse, they'd probably frame him as crazy or something. Then we have the options that involve him staying in the Dollhouse. He could just follow orders and comply with the Dollhouse protocols, to help the Dollhouse. But actually what he does is try to question the Dollhouse. He tries to get employees to, question whether or not it's a good thing to serve the Dollhouse. And that really is all he can do. I mean, he could take out his gun, he could start killing people. The Dollhouse security would eventually take him out, and they'd continue doing what they're doing. Again, Dollhouse is a dystopia. It's like District 9, it's like Brazil. it's an unfavorable scenario presented to commentate on our society. And it may have some evil characters who are kind of likable, but this is only a superficial like. No, I guess evil's kind of a strong word. Adele and Topher are more morally ambiguous than anything. Though there are some evil characters who we don't like the rapist who sends Sierra to the dollhouse against her will. Topher and Adele are characters we only like superficially. They have some characteristics we like, but they are definitely antagonists when they support the evils of the dollhouse. And her final point is that Alpha seems too scary, and I don't see how this is a worthwhile argument.
I think we have enough crazy serial killing, murdering men on television that we don't need to add to the repertoire with Dollhouse. The season finale was just cover my ears, cover my eyes. I didn't want to watch a single other episode of Dollhouse after that. It was just so grotesquely violent. It was unnecessary. It's this crazy, maniacal guy who was damaged by the dollhouse, which we're sympathetic to, right? Doing all these crazy things, so now he becomes the enemy, and the dollhouse is kind of in that gray middle zone area.
She seems to be saying that depicting evil, murdering men is misogynistic, like capitalizing on violence against women and thus making it a feminist issue. But it really seems like an issue of taste to me. I mean, the show doesn't support his violence. He's always an antagonist. It isn't the Alpha show. It's not Alpha kills people and it's cool. That's not the show. It's Alpha kills people, he's scary, he needs to be stopped. And yeah, he is a little misogynistic. I don't know if that's exactly what he is, but he is a man who tries to dominate women, Echo, Whiskey, etc. But when he has Echo and Caroline, and he tries to make Echo his secondary person, his Omega, Alpha and Omega, Echo and Caroline rebel against him, and the show endorses that. We are with them as they rebel against Alpha, and that is feminist. Sarkeesian also flashes examples for crazy serial killing men on television, with title cards for Bones, Dexter, and CSI New York. And I haven't seen CSI New York, so I can't comment on that. But Dexter, I can understand why someone would be put off by Dexter, but it's not... I mean, he has a code of honor he follows where he only kills serial killers, the kinds that, don't care about honor or whatever. And, Dexter has this code just built into him. His stepfather drilled it into him, so he follows it to the best of his ability. And so he's gray, he's morally gray, but you can understand why that there's this appeal. He's a vigilante. He is performing community service, as he calls it. So, yeah, it's not really violence against women or anything like that. He does kill a few women, but they are in the extreme minority, given that most serial killers are men. And there are a few strong female characters, including Rita, his wife, who had this abusive ex-boyfriend she rebelled against, and there's this scene where she throws her evil, controlling mother out, and she has... I think that she can be considered feminist in certain parts of the show, though certain parts of the show are definitely misogynistic in nature, not because Dexter is a serial killer, but because of patriarchy, standards about how women, it's complicated. I'll get into Dexter later, but the point is that Dexter is not an example of glorifying murder and as sort of a misogynistic thing. I don't think it's a feminist issue as far as Dexter's serial killing is concerned. Bones is definitely a feminist show. It has serial killers, but at any point we may be sympathetic to them. It's not when they're serial killing. Their murder isn't glamorized. The main character, Dr. Brennan, is this subversive, strong female character. She basically is a feminist. I'm not sure she actually identifies as such, but she has strong opinions, and there's this episode where she's going against this Girls Gone Wild kind of thing, where it seems like the creator might have been a murderer, and he, the creator, says some things about how he hates feminists, but because the show portrays this guy as gross and just, vile, the show endorses feminism. And so I don't think you can point at Bones and say this is an example of a problematic show. I think it's very feminist. I'll probably cover that later. But yeah, CSI New York probably is an example of this phenomenon of the glorifying serial killer. I mean, it is. I'm speaking from experience watching CSI Las Vegas, and in there is sexualization of corpses and stuff like that. So there is problematic content in CSI, and I would say CSI is the best example of that kind of misogynistic storytelling that glorifies, not glorifying the serial killing, using it in a way that the viewer can get off or whatever. I think CSI is the problem. Again, haven't seen CSI New York, but probably CSI New York more than Bones or Dexter. And I can understand why these shows wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. When I watch Lifetime movies and there's those serial killers and they're hunting the women, I can't handle that. So I change the channel. And I don't call the channel misogynistic, the Lifetime movies, because I think that we're supposed to root for the women characters, and I think that it's portraying it as bad, the serial killing. I don't think we're supposed to like the serial killers at all. I don't think that there's anything wrong there. The Dollhouse didn't create Alpha exactly. They gave him personalities. They had this incident where all the personalities were downloaded into his head, and he gets all these ninja skills, and that is something the Dollhouse did. But the fact that he's a killer is because that's what he was before the Dollhouse did anything to him. It's that whole thing about, can you erase a soul? Alpha's soul is evil, and that's why Alpha is evil.